Let's call the meeting to order. We have name tags. I don't think we need introductions tonight, do we? No? Good. All right. So do we have any additions or corrections to the agenda? We'll add, we can add under new business a response to some correspondence that we have from the Newfane Select Board. Okay, and that's it. Members of the public, anybody who's here to speak to something that's not actually on the agenda, if you want to speak now, it's your shot. Otherwise, you can speak under the portion of the agenda that's relevant to your comments. Anyone? Okay, so we have correspondence from the Newfane Select Board inviting the board to attend a meeting to open lines of communication. I believe this went to all the board members, as well as it's also addressed to the Newbrook Elementary Board. And we probably just, under new business, we can formulate a response to this, whether we're going to attend, we can figure out what we're going to do with it. We also were just handed correspondence, and, I'll have this posted on the website for everybody. We were also just handed a letter from Susan Jones having to do with reinforcing the value of family consumer science classes. There are some articles, research attached from, looks like, talking about financial literacy in high school. Looks like it's a study done by Champlain College. We also have a newspaper article from the Brattleboro Reformer back in February of 2018, talking about some students having better life skills than others. It's a pretty good sized article. I have not had a chance to read it because I was just handed it, but I'll give this to anybody. It talks about the things that you would learn in a senior survival mini class. I apologize, I'm probably shortchanging this long article. But that's here for anybody. I'm not sure how we'll get that on the website, but we'll figure something out. Scans or a link or something. Does anybody have questions regarding any of these things? Board members, community members? Anybody want to see a copy?
So I have a couple other questions, I guess.
Sure.
In regards to the budget, it seems like teacher positions are always the ones being cut. And I'm kind of wondering why that is, and I understand my position, and I referenced that in my letter that I gave you tonight with my low enrollment. However, what Bob Thibault didn't mention last time, and I mentioned this in the letter, is that yes, my class size is reduced to 7 students. 7 students roughly for the past year in high school family and consumer science, but what Bob didn't mention is that because of my contract, I teach wellness 1 block, I teach middle school 1 block, so that leaves 1 high school block for me to teach high school family and consumer science classes. So yes, 7 doesn't look like a lot, but it's only 1 block as opposed to a, other department teacher that teaches 3 blocks of their department in a day. So that's one point I wanted to make. And not knocking any individuals, but why do we, if we have reduced enrollment, why do we need 2 administrators? Instead of cutting teacher positions, maybe reduce some administrators. And my third point is, with 1 teacher retiring, he just made that public today, most likely he is at a fairly high salary level. So in hiring these two new 6th grade teachers that we need to hire, potentially his high salary could equal like 1.5 of those 2 new positions that we need. And I'm not sure how that's worked into the proposed budget. So, thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Anybody questions, comments? Okay. We get an update on the state of the middle school transition from Mike Harrigan tonight. Mike?
Stand over here.
Wherever you like, wherever you're comfortable.
Camera like you over there.
Yes, Em likes you over there so she can film you.
So we've been hosting a series of meetings with current fifth grade parents, so sixth grade parents for next school year. At the first meeting, we really determined what the purpose of our meetings was going to be, and we selected several topics that we would cover in a given meeting. So our first topic-focused meeting was last week. We actually focused on a one-time sixth grade class trip that we would do because as fifth graders, they don't have a fifth grade class trip this year. And some interesting things came out of that meeting, and this will help give the sixth grade teachers next year a frame of reference as to what the community values in a sixth grade class trip. On this handout here, for the purpose, there really were four main reasons for a class trip that developed as themes. The first one was bonding amongst the students on the trip. Having some sort of challenge that they overcome was important. There's something for everyone. So, students who are musically inclined have the opportunity to do something like that. Students who like sports get to do that. And then most importantly was student ownership, so helping to fund the trip. So students have, the term was some skin in the game that came up from multiple parents at our last meeting. So using that as a frame of reference when we get the sixth grade teachers for next school year, they can kind of hit the ground running with why we have a class trip. We talked about who, and aside from school staff, any parent or guardian who passes a background check and is able to pay for the trip would be able to go. We're still looking at the same time frame, so May or June of 2020. And it did come up where we would actually go because Newbrook does Montreal, and then Townsend kind of varies, and Jamaica tends to do Nature's Classroom. Because this is a unique situation, the community the parents who attended were open to doing a unique trip. So not necessarily adopting something that already exists, but planning something that aligns with those four themes of bonding, overcoming challenges, something for everyone, and student ownership, so doing something new. And then we devote a lot of time to how to actually fund this trip and how to fundraise for it, because we don't want to step on the toes. We're not sure what the elementary schools are going to do, but we would think they might be doing like a fifth grade class trip moving forward. So next year we wouldn't want to be like competing, doing similar things as the fifth grade fundraising. So trying to think outside the box of some things that we could do. The other topics we're going to cover are down at the bottom. We're going to do one next Monday, talking about physical activity at the sixth grade level. Other topics that we're going to get into over the course of the next few months: social emotional supports, extracurriculars, academics and supports. And then one of the themes that came up in our initial meeting was to over-communicate. So maybe doing some things differently with Moving On Up Day and sixth grade middle school information night. So that's kind of where we're at. And we've stacked these meetings before West River board meetings. So they're at 5:30. So that's why we'll meet next Monday at 5:30. And then we just piggyback right into these at 7 o'clock. So that's kind of where we're at. Questions?
Thank you.
I
Anybody?
have a question.
Yeah.
What's the percentage of parents for the kids that are coming up, showing up to the meetings?
We had 12 the first night, and the second one we had 7. It was the snow night. So, yeah. Yep. And we meet tomorrow as leadership team anyway, so they'll be sending those flyers home with the parents tomorrow, so they'll be notified, about a week ahead of the event.
Yep.
So.
Can you just shoot a copy of that to us?
Yeah.
So that we can, you just email it to me and I'll send it to everybody.
Absolutely. All right, thanks.
Thanks, Mike. Thanks, Mike. Okay, next on the agenda is a leave of absence request. We have a letter that Bob gave me from Stephanie Nizio asking for an extended leave for the 2019-20 school year to focus on her artistic vision and involvement with environmental issues. Typically she references the section of the master agreement where this is actually allowed. Typically, we just, we'll ask for a recommendation from Bob and see what he says. Bob?
Yes.
Thank you.
We think
That was succinct.
it's interesting, this will be the first one that comes to this board, because it's for next year,
Yeah.
not the Leland and Gray board, but I'm a strong believer in that folks need the opportunity to kind of, recharge the batteries and do that. It's a win-win because it puts them in a position to come back stronger, and it's not at any additional cost to the board and community.
Yeah, there's no budgetary, the only budgetary impact is if the replacement is
Yeah,
at a
replacement.
lower salary
Yeah.
than hers.
Yep,
We're high.
right.
Okay, so, go ahead, Al.
I know there's some segments of curriculum where we have a tough time filling positions. Is that true of art, or or do we think we're okay with?
I have, I'm trying to think, in my years, I've replaced a couple of our teachers in previous schools, and the pool was decent.
Okay.
Since it's only a one-year position, that will hurt the pool a little bit rather than a permanent position. But I suspect that we'll be able to find someone. I'm not super worried about that. But you're right, there are some areas that are tough to fill. Math, some languages, special ed.
Okay,
But I think art should be okay, I think.
great, thank you.
Absolutely.
Anybody else? Okay, so we just would need a motion to approve that leave of absence.
I'll make that motion.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion on that? Emily moved, Al seconded. All right, all in favor of approving the leave of absence for the 2019-2020 school year for Stephanie Nazio, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? The ayes have it, motion carries. Okay. So, did anyone not get the Newfane Select Board letter emailed to them, or not see it on the board? Okay, so the Newfane Select Board has invited us to a meeting to open lines of communication between the boards. The letter does not talk about what they want to discuss or what communication they want to have with us. So, I did return the email acknowledging receipt of the letter and say that it would be added to tonight's agenda for a response, but beyond that, I didn't want to respond because I can't, we didn't speak for the board. So, I guess I would kind of like to know what what they want to talk about before someone just shows up at a meeting. And, we have the additional problem of, if I were to go to the meeting, or if we were to have a delegation to go to the meeting, again, we really don't speak for the board unless we're at a meeting. So we would just be sort of gathering information and not really doing much. I guess I'm in favor of sort of responding in writing and saying, asking them sort of what they want to talk about, where do they want to have communication, and the easier way would be to have one of their members come here with the questions so that we could, in our
Answer as a
meeting,
board.
answer as a board rather than try and, go back and forth. But I would love to hear from the rest of you. Yeah, Drew?
Are there any of those board members in the room by any chance?
No.
Okay.
Good try.
Just a thought.
Yeah, I looked, I was like, Mike?
I watched their most recent meeting where they talked about that, and so it was definitely part about the solar field, and then it was also part about when the transfer of the property happens, if they're gonna still be maintaining, like plowing the driveways and stuff. So they had a concern that, my impression of it was they had a concern that some of the transfer had already happened, and so they were wondering if they should still even be plowing for this year. So that was what I got from that.
Yeah,
I agree with you. I think that would be great to get them to tell us what they want.
Yeah,
I
rather
would
than
encourage
sort
them
of,
to send someone to us if that, we've got so many meetings already.
Maybe they can come to us on the 17th instead of us going to them.
well, their meeting is the 17th as well.
Well, I know, but
We could ask, although I actually am not sure we need to meet on the 17th, based on the information I have about the budget. We may actually be able to there would be nothing new at that meeting. Everything we can know tonight, and then in the week between now and then, we're not going to learn any new information. So we might actually be better served to just not meet and in January know it all.
Technical question,
Sure.
and probably not the most intelligent one, but if the whole board goes to a meeting, we have to
We have
warn
to
it,
warn
right?
it,
Okay,
yeah.
thank you. I was just curious.
This letter also went to Newbrook Board, so
So we would have to warn that.
it-
too.
it's the, there's two boards that they're approaching right now on this, so.
Ken, I know you're the chair of the Newbrook Board. You
So
got
you
what's
want-
what's
I don't
your
know if you have a
response on
meeting.
this? Do you know yet?
My
Has your board
response
decided?
on this is, I happen to be in the office today for other matters, but my understanding was that being we were having a meeting that night at 7, they were going to try to hurry their meeting up and come here on the 17th, would be a possibility. Now, I don't, well, now if we're saying we're not going to have a meeting.
Well, we can decide. I
Send the
mean,
letter still.
we can send a letter back to them and say we may not meet that we're, and let them know what we're going to do, and then also ask them, to come to a meeting with the questions, and we'll be happy to answer them. I mean, I'm willing to do whatever the board directs me to do to respond to this request.
I think that's fine, that you send them a letter
Okay.
stating, it'd probably be better for them to come meet with the board and direct the questions to the board.
Is it prudent to warn just in case a bunch of us get to go? Or is that, I don't know what the percentage needs to be to make sure that we're all, I think open communication is great. I understand the number of meetings that we've been doing.
I mean, the properties are pretty well, once the vote happened,
Yeah,
we
they
merged.
just need clarity. They
you know
just
what I
need
mean? It's not,
clarity. They- I think
the
they're
official,
confused.
the official start date of the board doesn't matter, but everything that was in all the articles as far as all assets and properties will go to the new district. And that's an interesting question, though. I didn't hear that one about the plowing, but that's,
Well, that can be addressed.
Yeah, and that would be
No question.
probably as of the start of this board running things, it would be. But we can address that with them. All right, so I'll send a written response and just ask them to clarify what their questions are, and invite them to come here, and the board would be happy to answer the questions and see what
And
they
if
say.
they can't come to send the questions to us in writing, if they are unable to.
Yeah, and we
come
can
to our
certainly
meeting.
answer in writing.
It'd be nice to know exactly what.
Okay, I'll get that done. I'll get that response out tomorrow, and I'll copy the board on it, so you'll see it.
And you can tell them when our next meeting is, whether it's the 17th.
And I'll let them know when our next meeting is, if we do hold the meeting on the 17th, and if we don't, we'll tell them it's in January. Anything else on that? All right. So, the building committee report. Who wants to do that? Do we have a chair?
Yeah, you.
Oh. I was afraid that was, I was like, I think I am, but maybe I can get out of this. You want to do it? I'm happy to do
Go
it.
ahead, go, John.
All right,
You're
so
fine.
the building committee met, we pulled in an engineer who's worked with some of our buildings and some of the plans on our buildings. We borrowed Ed, who has been in Leland and Gray for a long, long time. We also had Bob and Lori and Bill. And so we're looking at this, the line item in the budget, without looking at it, is $700,000 for maintenance that each board has pushed off in the last few years to bring us to where we probably ought to be, based on these engineering reports that we commissioned when we took over, when this board knew that it was going to be taking over managing those 4 buildings. Obviously, that's a huge number to swallow, and we sort of tasked some of these professionals with, what can we do to keep the building safe for the students and the staff, and give this a little time to settle out and see what it is, what direction we're going to go, and what we want to do, and take some time to look at it. are the buildings at the end of their useful life? You know, this is a 50-year building, our engineer was saying, and it's been around for almost 50 years. So, you know, maybe sticking several $1 million into Leland and Gray at this point is not the best thing to do for Leland and Gray. But we need time to look at that. Time to make a plan. So the recommendation was to reduce that $726,000 amount to $300,000, about $300,000. $100,000 was the number that they felt it would take to keep the 4 buildings safe, operating, working for the next year. $100,000 of that covered the bond payment or loan payment on the replacement boiler for this building. The Leland and Gray boiler is being held together with tape and bubble gum, and apparently it's gone out a couple times today. There are people checking on it literally hourly, and sometimes you have to manually shovel the chips. There's grant money available right now, and is there a question or just laughing?
No, I'm just saying, is that what Bob's doing?
Not shoveling chips.
Not shoveling chips.
Old locomotive, just keep shoveling.
There's bond money available grant money available from Wyndham Wood Heat. So, you know, and that's by the end of the year, or
Right,
it's
yeah,
pretty
the money
quick.
goes
So
away
we need to
after.
move. We need to move pretty quickly. Things are in process to get that done so that we can get that grant money. But you know that has to be done. Otherwise, this building is cold, and you know I'm sure cold children don't learn, just like hungry children don't learn.
We do have backup, but it's oil.
It's oil. It's expensive. And then
Oh, I just wanted to point out, when you're talking about the boiler, that does need to be an article on the warning. Oh, yeah. Am I saying that right? A separate article,
Oh, we would need to warn that for our annual meeting
yes, as a separate article,
as a separate article to
for the bond or bank
the
loan.
boiler, the borrowing money to replace the
Yes.
boiler.
Yes.
Is it if we bond it or if we loan it, or
Yes.
just if we?
I checked with the
Either way?
the bank
Okay.
on Friday, and we do.
Okay. So we'll have to amend our warning. Do we have the language that we need for that, or not until we decide how we're going forward?
Right, I'm waiting for Ed, he's gathering some information about how much we would need, and then I would know the terms of the loan. So I'm waiting a little bit, but we'll get that as soon as possible.
Okay. And then the last money that's in there is money to pay consultants and professionals to start working on a multi-year plan for what we want to do to keep our buildings up. You know, where are we going from here, kind of thing. We're thinking it's. The engineer was saying to really go through and figure out what you want to do with buildings and whether it makes sense to do heavy-duty remodeling or prop them up the way they are, or what you're going to do would take at least a year. And that money would pay for that, you know, that study to be undertaken so that we can do the right thing. Because, you know, I mean, the analogy was, you know, you can put this money in, but until we really look hard at what we should do, we could be throwing a lot of money, you know, good money after bad kind of thing. So that's the recommendation of the building committee to, you know, reduce that number down to the, and the last number is a little bit in flux. We can't put it hard in the budget right now because we're gonna get some estimates as to what that was gonna actually take. The rounded figure was 100, but it could go to 120 or so, 140 maybe. But those were the 3 areas that needed to be put in the budget. So we would say, we would take out about 400,000 out of that building item. Yeah, out of the 732.54, we would take out somewhere between 4 and 432, or 4 and 410. Okay?
Well, do you have to put that study out for bid?
What study?
What you're talking about, the 100,000, 100 to 140,000? It's over that earmark, isn't it?
I'm sorry?
We'd have to go RFQ on that, right?
Yeah.
Well, it's piecemeal though. I don't think,
Right.
the whole thing is over 100, but I don't think any it's like, you know, 40 here, 20 here, 30 here. I don't know if we do or not,
We can look into it.
but we should, that's a good question. We should look into it.
I'm pretty sure it's anything over 15 you have to RFQ.
Yeah, anything over 15, it depends on how you do it though.
Oh, okay, so then we would have to put a bunch of
I'll
it
find out
out.
for sure. It's probably a good idea anyway.
Okay.
How much are we budgeting for the consultant, the study?
We're looking to see what it's all gonna cost, but somewhere between 100 and 140.
Just for the study?
Right.
So we should definitely, I would like to see a presentation from whoever is proposing to take $140,000. And I'd like to see 2 or 3 presentations from, I'd like to
That
go
would
out
be
to
the
bid.
building committee's job.
I mean, this is a $40,000 consulting contract that's going to, steer us for many years in the future, and you could have 3 different consultants with 3 completely different visions.
It's not one contract at this point. That was multiple different pieces of it. There were structural engineers, other, heating, air conditioning. There were multiple pieces in that, and it was really an estimate. There's no single plan.
So there's no consulting engineer that's coming up with an overall plan?
There was an engineer at our meeting who said, I need some time to put together that final number and give you guys an estimate. We haven't commissioned anything, we're just saying this is about what we need to have in the budget to then go out and commission it. And then the building committee would do just that, is get the people in line and do that. And, take that process through before we start spending money.
Okay, so we'll see a presentation from somebody before we
From the
spend
building
that money.
committee.
The building committee will vet the engineers and then bring it to the board and say, here's what we think.
True.
Good, no?
You got it all?
Any more questions? Anything? Okay, so that's the recommendation of the building committee. Any other budget review, any other changes, proposed changes?
Well, so I would, based on what the building committee just shared, do you want the business office to adjust the budget to reflect what you just suggested, which is a reduction of between $432,000 and $422,000?
Yes, please.
As soon as you find out how much.
Yeah, I mean, we understand that it's gonna take, a couple more, another little bit of time to figure out that last number, but yes, make those reductions,
We
please.
still don't have the exact number on the boiler either.
No, we don't know.
All,
we don't know
all
how
3 of
much
those
the grant
numbers are
funding's
kind of
gonna be.
Fluid,
They are.
but in general.
Right, yeah.
Okay. All right.
Trish.
So the 400 that's going away, what is that
Being deferred.
comprised of? What are we pushing off yet again?
I don't actually we didn't actually go through the list and say, do this, don't do this, don't, with things. It was more looking at the list and saying, okay, this really needs attention and it will cost about this. This really needs attention. We could get that list.
Yes.
But I don't have it right now. I know that was Ed and the engineer talking about, well, these things are important, this we gotta do, yeah, we need to do that. And then saying that'll be about X, and that was the rounded number was 100,000 to hold it.
Is it a concern? Does it feel like we're traveling in the same steps? Not that we might have to. I'm just curious if there's this $700,000 nut that's sitting out there that things need to be addressed, and we're addressing less than half.
Well, there's
Like,
really
I just-
a multi-million-dollar nut sitting out there over a long-term capital plan. And the idea is to do what we need to do to keep everybody safe and, safe, healthy, do what we need to do to keep these buildings, a good place to be. And then really dig into this a little bit and say, okay, do we do a bond issue to sort of do all of this maintenance that we've neglected? do we fix these buildings and this building we don't want to fix? School choice may play into this
Right.
some, where buildings aren't going to be used as much. I mean, there's,
Construction aid might come, who knows, that might be
Yeah.
proposed and come back. I mean, there's a lot of factors.
there's a lot of things, and this buys us that time to look at this while we keep
Right,
everybody
right.
safe. But no, we are very, very much, we understand that there's more coming and we have to do this. We need to take care of everything. Get Alicia and then you, Drew.
Does the Buildings and Ground Committee have a summarized to-do list that we might be able to kind of just peruse, or is that a big giant headache? I mean, we spend a lot of money with those engineers to get that information.
Well, what we had when the engineers came out to us last.
Yeah, we had the engineer
that-
stuff
we all got
last
that
year.
report.
I mean,
Okay, yeah.
we have the 3 years of,
So you don't have like a summary of your top hit list out of those reports?
well, this is
Sorry,
everything
school.
that's been put off by school for 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
There's this piece that was, I think, distributed to the board a
Yeah.
while ago that talks about just the
Okay.
money, but it doesn't talk about what exactly is being done.
Yeah, no, I was just
Um,
curious
Got
if there
all
was
that.
a.
Yeah, we have all this. But no, we don't have.
You don't have your
in-
top picks in a list?
No,
Okay,
not yet.
But that top picks will be. part of
besides a
the-
boiler.
Yeah, the boiler's on there. We can definitely come back and say, here, of that 100, here's what we're gonna actually do.
Okay.
Sure.
Okay.
Yes, Drew, you were next.
So, to answer your question, yes, I'm concerned that we're kicking this down the road yet again. So, the reason why we're looking at a piece of paper with $6 million or almost $7 million on the bottom line is because every one of the school boards has kicked this ball down the road over and over and over again. That's why we're looking at this giant number. And yes, we are still kicking this down the road yet again. But I think it's important that as we kick this ball down the road, we understand that it's not going away, and we are going to have to address this $6 or $7 million deficiency at some point in the future, either by a huge increase in our annual budget or a bond issue. And the only way I'm willing to kind of support that is if this board understands that we are kicking this down the road for a year so that we can make an intelligent decision with the information that we have available to address it, because we don't have time to address it right now. And that's why, the building committee said, let's fix what we have to fix, study what we need to study, but the board and the public need to understand, we've got somewhere in the $7 million range worth of repairs to our school buildings. And I don't think we want to hide that. I think we want to put it right out in front of the public. It's coming. It may not be coming this year, but it's coming.
This is multiple buildings.
Yeah, this is all 4 buildings
Four
over
buildings,
the
yep.
course of, and this plan actually for $6.5 million takes it out 15 years. So. Al?
Actually, wanted to point to Lori for a sec. Could you just explain layman's terms about the benefits of bonding? We kind of talked about it at the building committee meeting. What would be the beneficial to doing that versus?
Sure. So one of the benefits is that as long as you have an approved project or all your projects are approved, then that helps to reduce any penalty that you would be paying on the tax rate. So, which West River will be in a situation where they're paying a penalty. So anything that you can pull out of that penalty number, obviously reduces your taxes. So, of course, even with the, actually, I just sent Joe a form tonight that we don't have to do anything with tonight, but to get the boiler even approved as a state-approved project so that we can use that as well to reduce any penalty that we would be paying, that West River would be paying.
Thanks. Thank you.
And what are we gonna be replacing this boiler with?
Another wood chip.
Another wood chip?
That's
Doesn't
newer.
work, so we're gonna do it again.
a much newer, better technology.
We've only had it for 25 years.
Yeah, this boiler's.
Yeah, but I've been hearing for years about the feeding process of that boiler not functioning properly, so.
Well, it's gonna be a newer, better boiler. They're even talking about locating it, you know, away from the building, out in a separate area. So it wouldn't be as problematic as it is now, where it's in a tight space and hard to work on. It'll be a much better technology. And it's still
We were on
the
the
more
early
efficient
edge
way to
of it.
heat this thing. Yeah, it's nice in here now. Whoever's shoveling, thank you.
Do you have a position to budget to shovel chips?
Detention.
Not right now.
No. All right, so, anything else for the building committee? So we'll make those adjustments, and those will change between now and when we actually have a final budget to get a little more detail to them. We should have something in another week or two from the engineers. And Ed, we'll have to call another building committee meeting. Okay, anything else on the budget?
Not really, I didn't make any changes.
No.
I'm waiting for that. If you do take out roughly 400,000, it'll reduce the budget down to about 6% increase over last year versus an almost 10% increase, so. Helpful.
The only other thing I was wondering about is, you know, is there room to give Journey East a little bit of money to set aside? You know, they said the presentation we had last time talked about they have enough money to run through the next year. It's the 20th anniversary. You know, I think we all acknowledge the incredible value to the students, both the students that go and the students that are just, you know, involved in the cultural exchange when the Chinese students come here. You know, I think they're in there for 31 or 32 now. 31. I mean, even if we bump the line item up to 50 and let them put a little aside for the rainy day, for the time that's coming, it means that it's less of a hit for us going forward. And it also acknowledges that we really do value the program and that we're trying to plan for ways to keep it. You know, it sounded like they're worried that it might not go on if we don't figure out the funding of it. And, you know, if we can tuck a little at it, maybe it helps. I just threw that out there. That was the only other change that I thought about.
What would, another sort of tangent to that is what would it look like to hire a grant writer and somebody that would look for this money, right? Like, this probably exists somewhere, like,
SU conversation,
what does that look like?
Do we know what that looks like? Hiring a grant writer?
No, I have no idea what it looks like, but I
we
could
looked at it in the
investigate that.
past.
Do you remember?
No, I don't remember, but it was so far away that if I did remember, I don't think it'd be relevant now anyway. But we have looked at it but we've only looked at it at an SU level because it would cover,
Right.
you know, multiple needs.
That makes sense.
Right.
I can look into that. At least give you a,
Yeah.
I don't think any of us could afford to hire one on our own, but
Right.
Instead of a one-time donation, it'd be a long-term
Right.
donation.
Right.
Put the money into that, potentially. That's 90.
Heidi?
I just had a question going back to the food program. Can you remind me how much, when, there was a couple pieces that you talked about in the food program that's gone into this budget, one of which was changing how the program was run, but one was trying to feed all the kids in the district for free. What was that price tag that goes with feeding all the kids in the district for free? Do you remember?
Right now, I'm estimating about 50,000, but I do believe that we have a very good lead on some grant money as well on that from the Stratton Foundation. So, you know, I'm planning for worst case scenario, and I did put the 50,000 in the budget with the board's direction. So I'm hoping that, you know, we'll be able to have some grant money to offset that. And also you also get more federal reimbursement as well. So those two things. It won't cover the full 50,000, but
I was just gonna say that I would caution the board on jumping into that right away. I just think there's so many changes going on, and I think people are looking for savings, and I think, you know, there are pieces in place to help people that need food, the free and reduced meals. I think it's a wonderful idea, but with all the things that we're looking at and cutting certain things, but I think the food program, you might just want to take a step back. I mean, the Stratton Foundation, I've spoken to them myself actually, and I think that they would help if there were families that were borderline of not qualifying, because yes, those are pretty low standards, but there are plenty of people in our district. I mean, Townsend doesn't have any money that's owed. Families pay, and the families that are reduced and free get free, and we're not collecting any money, we're not chasing after anybody. I think $50,000 is a lot of money when I feel like the program's working, and when you're talking about big numbers, I know 50,000 doesn't seem like very much, but I think in the end, when you're looking at a percentage of how much this budget is gonna be up and getting people to approve it, I think that's a piece that you could consider taking back out. I just wanted to mention that.
can I just follow up a little bit on that? So Newbrook is doing that this year.
Yes, I
Provision
understand
2.
that.
So it would be a change for Newbrook parents to
Well,
go
see,
back to paying.
That's the other thing that concerns me, is once you do it, going backwards is a big deal, and there's a piece of entitlement that goes with that. I mean, things are getting expensive, but I understand it was started as just a trial run to see if it would work. So, yeah, I understand.
But we are looking right now, if I'm correct, at like $96 per student for the whole year,
I'd have to look at it.
something like that. It's how many students? 500 and
10, well, yeah, roughly 500.
510? Okay, so I'll take that back. I'll say $97 per student for them to have breakfast and lunch every day for the whole year. I think if you're gonna make an investment on making sure that your students have proper nutrition throughout the day, $97 per student for a year is fantastic.
But again, Ken, if you make this happen and down the road you're cutting things, it's gonna hurt more to those families in the end if this ever has to come back out. And it's only a guesstimate. I mean, I would rather us, if you're gonna put a whole new food program in, which Townsend doesn't need, and that's gonna cost $60,000, I don't know why we would tack on an additional $50,000. I mean, I just, I'm gonna think about it.
Because it's equitable. Okay, we'll go back to equitable. It's equitable.
Well, there's a free and reduced meal that the state puts out that's equitable for everybody in the state of Vermont. I mean, that's equitable. If you qualify, you qualify. If you don't, you pay. And you pay $2.80 for lunch. So, it's still a good price.
That might be over there. It's not $2.80 here.
It's, the state puts the limit, I mean.
I'm saying
sets
at the
bottom.
high school level, it's not $2.80, is it? For lunch?
I think the food price is set by the state.
Yeah, it is.
What we can charge
Yeah.
them.
Yep,
Okay.
for adults. For adults, yeah. Thank you, John.
Thanks. Anybody else? Howie?
You have a plan in place for when this budget gets voted down?
Nope.
Okay.
Historically, when budgets go down, it's because they're too high and you start making cuts. But why put anybody through the agony of that until it's time to do it? You know, that's stress on the administrators, stress on the potential employees, programs. It's, you know, it's unnecessary pain. So if we direct Lori to take out, if we have Lori adjust the budget to follow the recommendations of the building committee, we'll get another building committee report, we'll get another building committee meeting in before January 14th, and we'll have much better numbers, and we'll get a list of the projects that are actually going to be done in each building, and budget them that way. That's the only changes we want to see in the next draft of the budget.
I got a question.
Sure.
Back to the building committee. Originally, when we first started talking about the red forming and all that, before even Act 46, and Frank Recker came up with some numbers for building a new school. Oh, I'm gonna go there, I gotta go there, because if we're talking about spending all this money on multiple buildings that are at their end of their shelf life, is it just wiser to build a new building and consolidate at that point?
It may be, but that's what we're going to look at. That's one of the things we'll definitely look at over the course of the next year, where we buy ourselves that time. This, is $5 or $6 million worth of, building maintenance a good investment, or is it a better investment to, spend $20 million over a much longer term bond and get brand new modern building or buildings? Do we gut this one and do something else on this site and build another building for something else? How many buildings do we run? Where are those buildings? That's all something that can be discussed once we keep everybody safe in a building now and move forward. And those are conversations that should happen. And, we touched on possibilities in the building committee meeting, but without the research to know what makes sense and say, okay, this is what really makes sense for the next 20 years for the district, it's hard to say. But yeah, those are.
Well, I'm just saying, because I remember those numbers. It was like $250,000 a year the board would save just by building one elementary school.
That was when we were going to build Jamaica and Townsend, and there was also some state building aid in there that's gone away. If that comes back, that would be a huge factor in that as well. And then you also have to gauge Townsend and Jamaica talked for a long time about merging the two schools and building a new building, and eventually that didn't happen. We would be having a conversation then about building a new building and merging, 2-3 schools. We don't know.
I'm saying, but I'm saying if you were going to save $250,000 a year back then, and I know there were some numbers that weren't put into those numbers, but it just seems to me that if you're going to, even if it comes out a wash, and you're going to pay out millions of dollars, you might as well pay them out for all brand new equipment than trying to patch up old equipment.
That is the conversation that's going to happen at the building committee.
I think that should take you guys should really take a serious look at that.
We will.
Thank you.
You're welcome. You have something?
I do have a question, I think it's for Lori probably. Lori, when there's health and safety issues for facilities, I think there's still some grant money available, or some money.
Construction aid?
Construction aid for health and safety. So have we looked at that?
I haven't yet, no, but
because
that
I
would
do
be-
believe the capital fund, the capital budget at the state level does have money available if it's for health and safety.
Okay.
So I think we
Yeah,
should look at that, see what we
I'll
can
be
do.
investigating all of that,
That's
you
great.
know, what type of aid there is, so.
Thank you.
Okay, so then the direction is just to reduce to the building committee's recommendation, no other tweaks to the budget. That'll be our next draft. Good with that?
Well, I would say that on January 14th, we should know the conclusion of school choice, so.
Right.
We won't-
So that gets into the whole reason why I wanted to talk about maybe not meeting next Monday. Between now and next Monday, we won't have the equalized pupil number, we won't have the COA, and we won't have the results of school choice, so there'll be no new budget information. other than reduce it by 400,000. And the building committee won't have time to meet to get even harder numbers on those recommendations. So I'm thinking that, we might not, there's no budgetary reason to meet in a week. We gave ourselves all those meetings so that we could continue to talk and really work through this. So we may not have to meet next week unless somebody has a compelling reason to do so.
Jamaica has their winter concert, so.
So you would like to not meet next Monday?
And I'm sure Drew would like to not meet as well.
Okay. Emily will be gone, we know, at a legislative something, right?
I
Yeah.
can't remember what it is, but I have a meeting.
Okay, so-
That day. It's supposed to be legislative. I'll have to look.
Okay, so we won't meet next Monday on the 17th. Right? Everybody good with that?
Yep.
Okay.
So
So-
if we're not meeting next Monday, then pretty much the board is pretty well free.
Well, Emily will be gone, Christina will be gone, Drew will be gone. I actually have another commitment that ends at 7, and I was gonna scream over here and do that. I don't think we'd get a quorum to go to the Newfane Select Board.
And I
And
hope we
we've
won't.
already decided to write them a letter and say, what would you
Okay,
like to
no,
talk
I was
about
just
when you come back? Yeah.
throwing that out there since you canceled the meeting.
I just
We
had
could,
one
we
other-
could send,
Send them a letter to
we
come.
could designate
We
and
can't.
send you.
Yeah, I got you, hang on one second. Go
Just
ahead.
one other quick budget question. Bill, did you get any takers? Weren't you gonna offer teachers the chance to, like, get out?
Early
and-
retirement.
Early retirement?
Yeah, so that closed on Friday, and West River has 3 that have been accepted out of the 5 that we offered. Thank you, Mike.
So we won't lose the position, but we'll get a different rate.
Oh,
salary.
maybe.
Well, we'll see how.
We'll see how that shakes out.
Right.
Yeah, gotcha. All right. So we have everything with the budget. We're gonna take December 17th off. Policy Subcommittee, we have some policies that need to be warned, right?
Yes.
And
Ken, it's all you now.
Alrighty, what are we doing here?
Take it away.
Okay, I'm gonna skip over, well, I'll just do H1 first, which is board meetings, agenda preparation, and distribution. As far as this one goes, when we first met and we decided where we were gonna post the agenda, I don't know where that went. I believe it was on our, as I'm recalling, it was when we first set up all of our, what nights we're gonna have our meeting, what is our paper of record, blah, blah, blah. But I recall bringing up that the agenda should be posted now that we're a multi-town district, should be sent and posted at each school building and at each town hall prior to the meeting. And I would like to see that written in on the distribution part personally. It doesn't give you a spot on the policy for it, but we need to decide in concrete where these agendas are gonna be posted, because even though it's the 21st century, believe it or not everybody has internet access, and some still just go down to their local school or town hall.
So are you suggesting a procedure then, that goes along with this? Because that wouldn't be part of the policy probably, it would be a procedure.
Well, usually on some of the policies, it's written where it would be.
So it says it'll ensure the agenda is posted in the municipal
There's a
clerk's
legal-
office
Yeah.
and 2 other designated locations.
That's the legal.
Right,
Right,
that's the legal
That's the
requirement.
legal
Yeah.
requirement.
And those
So can
other
we just
designated,
add each school there?
I don't know, I've always posted mine up at the WCSU, town clerk's office, and the school. And actually, both town clerk's offices, excuse me.
Where ours are posted now. I'm going to make sure that they are following this exact procedure. I think they are.
I think they are. I mean,
But
I know it's
I
posted
think
at the
it's-
Townsend Town Clerk's office.
I think it's important for me to double check and
We
make
can-
sure that the will of the board is being followed.
I mean, all it takes is just one group email to go out.
Yeah.
They
I'm
go
pretty
out.
sure Meg does that, but I think that's a very reasonable question to double check.
Just because they're sent does not mean they're posted. So that's important. That's why I
Yeah.
question whether it should be part of, those language should be part of a policy or whether.
Well, that's
procedure
one
will cover it.
question I asked today at the town hall, and it was, Newfane is not receiving this district's agendas.
That's definitely something for me to follow up on. I will report back on the 14th.
I actually had to stop there after I left your office.
Okay.
No, it's good. In terms of the language though, Ken, are you,
Yeah,
the committee okay?
I mean, all this is fine,
Okay.
you know. So, A20,
Yeah.
A22 and A21 are the three policies, which is, the first one, all right, A20 is board meetings, agenda preparation and distribution. A21 is public participation at school board meetings. And A22 is notice of discrimination.
Non-discrimination.
Non-discrimination. Well,
But non is important.
I'd rather notify somebody if they're being discriminated against personally. So, okay, of non-discrimination, and these are the three policies that they are not required, they are recommended, and the policy committee would like to see those one. Any questions?
Just for clarity, on the board meetings agenda and preparation, under regular meeting schedule, second paragraph, it says only items on the agenda may be acted upon at these meetings. Acted being voted upon and taking action, because
Correct.
on the public participation, it says that under public input on items not on the agenda, it says that any emergency meeting, they can have input on items outside the agenda, so we would just not be able to vote on those items, correct?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
There cannot be a binding vote on anything that is not on the agenda.
There's a footnote down there.
Unless it's,
Yep, I was just being clear for clarity's sake. Thank you.
Well, no, you should avoid it. You can, under new business.
except for emergencies.
Right,
You
right.
get to act even without warning on emergencies items.
Right.
Doesn't happen very often, but you want to be able to. That's law.
If something has to be signed, or, perfect example is
Well,
an emergency bond.
that
Or an
would
emergency
be
note or
emergency.
something.
That would, no, emergency would be like the roof fell in or.
Right, Ken's talking about the boiler, we gotta go fix the boiler.
Yeah.
But those
We need to
items would be
authorize.
on the
But we know,
agenda of the
yeah.
emergency meeting, because that's why you called it, where we're saying
Yeah.
that something not on the agenda could be talked about or have public input at an emergency meeting on the other public participation.
We have a
So
backup
they still
plan.
can talk about it, we just can't vote. Like if we had an emergency meeting because the roof fell in, and somebody brought up a different topic because it was public input time, we can talk about it, we just can't vote on it.
Right,
Thank you.
that's the way I would read it. But I
Well,
would,
even,
I would tell
even an emergency
Mike-
meeting
Very
has,
limited.
even an emergency meeting has an agenda.
Emergency is very limited.
Yeah, they're usually a single item agenda.
I would
Right.
get Mike to look in the book.
Yes, but if there's no, yeah. Thank you.
Well, the only emergency meetings I've ever been at, it was just the board and half of it was on the phone and we got our
You're gonna make a
business
motion
done
to
and
warn.
I was just making sure we weren't conflicting ourselves in two separate policies, that's all.
So I would like to make a motion to warn these three policies.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you, Lindsay. Okay, so it's been moved and seconded to warn policies A20, A21, and A22. Any discussion, any further discussion on those policies? No? All in favor of warning those policies for adoption, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? The ayes have it. They'll be on the agenda for adoption at the January 14th meeting. Thanks, Ken, and the rest of the policy committee. Nice work. Okay, so We don't need an executive session, do we?
No.
No? Okay, good. We should move that down under consent agenda. And the only thing in the consent agenda is the minutes of the 26th, which you all have hard copies here. Yeah.
I make a motion to approve the minutes.
I'm not gonna, I don't think we need to pull them, but we should note that Cliff Passano's name is misspelled under Tina Bill's. We can get that corrected. So there's a motion to approve the consent agenda. Doesn't require a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? All right, we have official minutes. Anything else?
Then I'll make a motion to adjourn. Oh, wait, yes.
Sure.
In process with the budget vote then, I see on January 21st is when the board will approve the budget. But prior to that, where it's at right now, is it sort of at a fixed state or is it sort of still fluid with considerations, shifts in some of the staffing with, say, the leave of absence, retirement, the request by Ms. Jones to reconsider funding full-time that position. So are things in still a fluid state as opposed to a fixed state?
School choice. Yeah.
School choice is going to affect things, retirements will affect things. I mean, it's not final, but those are decisions that, you know, the administration will make and bring to us. And then the 14th will have much more information. We may actually be in a position that night to approve the budget, but we have the 21st is sort of, if we don't approve it on the 14th, we have to approve it on the 21st to fit into the warning schedule to get it out to the annual meeting. And we'll have to change the warning to add the boiler language, and we should have that by then. And you know, the 21st might actually not need to happen as well. But we're giving ourselves all the opportunities that we need to have these discussions.
I actually have a thing.
Is there a narrative that's listed on the website? I'm sorry, looking at the last meeting, but was the, like a rationale? I know in the past the principals have presented.
Yes.
So it's on the website, the school?
Did that get posted?
Yes,
Yes.
all three, the narrative, the budget, and the summary and the detail and the narrative are all on the West River website.
Okay, yes, Lindsay.
I just wanted to follow up as I'm thinking of it about our school choice policy is elementary age only, not preschool. And we said, we had discussed for preschool, like you can just send them where you want to send them. There's not really like a choice policy that we have approved regarding that. Right? Am I correct in that?
Yeah, we backed pre-K out of the choice policy so that they wouldn't be establishing their home school
Right.
by the children of New.
But we did also
coming up
discuss
here.
if they wanted that to be their home school, because if you're starting your kid at a school and you want to leave them there, because that's what they already know, there was some discussion about that being a thing, because they've already started there. Anyway, I guess the reason I'm bringing it up is that I don't know that we have a policy in place for what the preschool choice is, whether or not somebody who's gonna send their kid into kindergarten, are they going to apply for choice next year if they're in preschool? A Newfane resident that has a child at Townsend, would they have to apply for school choice for kindergarten for next year?
I think the policy.
As the policy stands, yes.
As the policy stands,
As
yes?
the policy stands now, yes, but you make a good point, and maybe we want to have an amendment to that. I know you're on the policy committee. Fix that. for
Why don't we
those
meet on
residents.
can we do the policy committee on?
Or
that-
14th of
on the
January
14th?
early?
14th, 6 o'clock?
Yeah, discuss that. That's a good point.
Good point, thank you.
Yep.
Anything else? Because I know Ken's dying to make a motion.
All right, I'll make that motion to adjourn.
Thank you, Ken. Second?
Second.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
We're done. Thank you, everyone.